Hello. I was working on something yesterday and I arrived at a point where a steady rest would have been pretty handy. And I don't have a steady rest sized for this lathe at the moment. So I thought I would just knock one together. I was actually kind of drawing out plans for a deluxe model, and then it just kept getting more and more and more complicated, and I decided just to make another crude one like I had for my last lathe. So what I've done here, and as far as dimensions go, the only real critical dimension is where your center is for the hole you're cutting. That has to be lined up with your lathe center. So I'm going to be using a piece of 1/4-inch plywood as a base. And this is a 24-inch swing lathe, so that the center of the lathe spindle is 12 inches above the bed. So if I'm losing 3/4 of an inch for the base, that means that the center of my hole needs to be 11 1/4 inches up from the bottom. So I have laid that out, and I just squared a line across at 11 1/4 inches from the bottom. And as far as the other dimensions go, how big the hole is depends on how big the biggest thing you're ever going to want to put in it is, I guess. It has to be a little bigger than that to give room for the wheels, the rollers. But in this case, I happen to have a couple of pieces of plywood that happen to be basically this wide. They were a little wider than that by the time I made sure they were completely square. They were just cuts. They were pieces left over from another project I was doing, and they were just cut with a skill saw originally. So I took the time to make sure I had 4 square corners on both pieces, because I've got 2 pieces laminated together here. So that happens to be 14.5 inches wide. It probably would have been nice if it was a little wider, but I think that should be fine. So I have just laid out the center here at 7 1/4 inches, which is the middle of the width. And I don't know if there's any need to square a line up here, but I will anyway. I'm not just entirely sure what I'll use it for, but it will be the center line of the top brace, I guess, the top arm. All right, now the 2 pieces of plywood weren't the same size. This one was too small. I couldn't, but I wasn't sure just how much height I would need, so I left the other one bigger. I can cut some off if I need to. So that is going to be the center of my hole. Now I have only just I put glue, and I've just screwed the 2 pieces together with glue in between. Once the glue has had a chance to set up, I'll take those screws out, just so I know I'm not going to hit them when I'm cutting something else. So I have got this set up, I believe, to... Yeah, so I'm right about 6 inches on the radius, That is going to make it pretty thin on the sides. I may choose to make the hole a little smaller than that. I don't anticipate at this point ever using it for something that's more than, say, 8 inches in diameter. So I suppose I could draw a circle 8 inches in diameter and see. Boy, that was awful good guess. So if that one is going to be, yeah, 8 inches will fit into what I want, what I've got here. I really wouldn't want to cut a hole any bigger and leave less wood on the sides here. If I was going to make a bigger hole, I would want bigger pieces of plywood, and that would mean I'd have to go and buy some plywood. This is plywood that I had laying around. It's not something I had to go out and buy. So I am going to be using a router with a trammel to cut that hole after I've taken those screws out, so I know I'm not going to run into a screw when I'm cutting the hole. So I'm going to need a hole for the trammel point. Boy, where is my circle cutting jig? So the way I plan to do this is this will be the top. So I'll probably cut another 1.5 inches or so off of there yet. But while I changed, why did I do that? Alright. I shouldn't have changed my compass. Alright, so I'm back to that setting. I have laid out that center line, which will be the center line of the top thing there. So I'm putting the point of the compass right on that center line and strike an arc there and over here. Then move the compass point to that point and strike an arc there. And there. So that is my layout for the 3 arms that will be 120 degrees apart. So from the center of the circle through that point, so this line represents the center line of the arm that the roller, the wheel will be mounted on. And this vertical line will represent the center of the top one. So that's really what setup I need until I know how wide these arms are, and I haven't milled them yet. So once I have them milled, I will route a slot, probably 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch deep, for that arm to seat into, and the same here and the same here. It might be nice to have more material there, but I don't have it. So we'll see how it works out with what I've got. So I take my router here. It's not plugged in. And I'm going to measure from the edge of the base plate to the edge of the bit. And that is 2 5/8 inches. Just, what did we wind up with? 2 1/16. So I want this to be 1 1/32 on each side of center. And I'm not cutting down here, but it will give me a longer baseline. Which should result in greater accuracy in this grand scheme of things. Alright, so that should be how wide I want my slot to be. And that may actually be a hair tight, but so I want to go 2 5/8 from this line to this . 2 5/8. Two and 5/8. So that should put me cutting right along this line. And it is off. And I only really need to route into here somewhere, so that's as far as I'm going to go. On. And I want the same on the other side. Why didn't I make those marks while I had my ruler out? Two and 5/8. Two and 5/8. All right. So once again, and that should, yeah, a little more slot than I would like, but it's the idea anyway. So I shall have to maybe make the other ones cheat a little under when I'm marking them out. So I need 5 and 5/8. So that means that the outside of the bit is 6 inches from the center of that pin. So that should be finally all right. So that is, I think, what I want to do. So let's find out. Oh, I'm not doing much. So I just want to see how far through I am. I'm about 7/8, so I'm just over halfway through, so that should be, that is 1.5 inches, so I think I'm going to do the rest from the other side. So what's going to happen here, when I cut that free, the center disc isn't going, I'm going to be, I'll be holding on to the outside, but the center disc could easily, which has got my guide point in it, I could, if this was a real critical thing, I would want to maybe put some double stick tape on here so that it wouldn't shift around as the disc came free. I'm not all that concerned. This isn't a critical thing, so I'm not all that concerned about it actually. So I'm going to shift it away from the gap there though. All right, so that seemed to be working fine. And I will just, I guess, continue in the same fashion. All right. So my holes didn't line up exactly, but I think they're probably close enough for this. So I have a ledge on the sides. I'm all right. I seem to be pretty good on this axis, but I was off somewhat the other way. The circle on this side was shifted very slightly this way from what the circle was on this side. I'm not sure why that is, but it doesn't really matter.